Georgia, Georgia, the whole day through. Just an old sweet song.
Ladies and gentlemen, happy Wednesday here. We've got another episode of the Herschel Talkers, episode 6. I know we hadn't had one in a while, but we got Big Sean on today. How are we doing today?
What's up, America?
There we go. For our hey, we had a couple weeks ago. We had I think over 50 viewers. One of our best episodes. So hey, slowly but surely, we're growing. It is spring practice again. I believe they're on practice 3 or 4, so we're right in the middle of it, which is great. The G-Day game will be, I believe it's Saturday, April 22nd at 2 p.m. I think they coined it. They're going to try to make it red and black, which is cool. I don't believe they're going to try to get 93K Day, but I think if that would get turnout, that'll help recruiting. But we'll jump right into it. Just want to talk about, I know we've had a little bit of people, transfers and attrition, so I was going to get Sean's thoughts on that. First off, I guess kind of the biggest blow, Riley Ridley, probably I think he's second on the team last year in receptions, got popped on marijuana, but he's also had, I believe it's a foot injury, so from reading the handbook, I think he's going to get one game out, which we could definitely use him in that first game against App State because I think that's a trap game. But also they're talking about Shakeith Williams came out. He's been doing like a player-coach type thing that he might not even come back. I think he's a 4-star. Is it the 2014 class, Sean? Is that right?
I thought 2013.
Okay.
He was at least there through Murray's senior year.
Yeah, he hadn't really done too much. I know he's kind of like, he had a lot of, he progressed a little bit, but he's never really done too much. So basically what I wanted to ask you is what your thoughts are. We're a little light at the wide receiver position, which, they were weak last year. So I was going to get your thoughts on that. You got probably Ridley out. I think he's still out with an injury. They said they might get him back in the spring, but basically got the weed charge. Will probably be out the first game and, Get your thoughts on the wide receiver depth that we don't have currently.
Yeah, I mean, really, it hurts anytime you lose a player who contributed like Riley Ridley did as a freshman. He was kind of one of the lone bright spots at wide receiver. Was kind of really the lone guy that I thought was able to show big play production, especially with long passes and touchdowns for us. So obviously, getting a guy like that in trouble or even injured, whichever way you want to split the baby, it hurts us. There's no question about that. It looks like since I believe it's his first violation, worst case scenario, you're looking at having him out for one game, which would be App State. No disrespect to my undergraduate alma mater, App State can certainly no pushover. But obviously, the fewer games that you're potentially without him, the better off you're going to be. The other thing, too, with that is that, on the offensive side of the ball, we can probably overcome some of his loss just by being able to dominate the line of scrimmage and kind of dominate the time of possession with the run. Also, we're hearing that Miko Hardman's playing some on wide receiver finally, and then we've got some other freshmen that are coming in as well. So I think as long as they can collectively, spell Riley Ridley at both, wide receiver and tight end, where we have a ton of depth, I think we can probably sustain, the loss of him for one game, assuming that, we don't sleep on App State the way Tennessee did.
Exactly. So who'd be maybe your top 3 picks coming in for next year? They'd be top 3 wide receivers in your opinion. Because we're losing Isaiah McKenzie led us in receiving, so I know we're losing him. He's gone, but good.
Yeah, I think Terry Godwin, just because he's a junior, he's pretty sure-handed. I think his production was obviously down last year. I think part of that may have just been the routes they asked him to run. I think that you're probably also going to get some from and his name escapes me, but who was the other incoming wide receiver this past year that showed some pretty good production? Number 6, Trey?
Yeah, Riley Ridley was pretty good. And then another guy they're really high on was Javon Wims. He finally caught a touchdown in the bowl game.
Yeah, Javon Wims, I think, will be up there. And then I think you can probably put it up to one of those 3 freshmen to probably put up some numbers. I wouldn't be surprised to see Miko Hardman as well. He might be the most talented out of any of the group.
Yeah, they're also talking about splitting out Sony Michel, which, he's got really good hands. Maybe splitting them out more, trying to get it to him.
Yeah.
What do you think about the incoming freshman? Maybe got to go with it since he's already on there. Have been hearing good things about Holloman, right? Jeremiah Holloman, or JJ as they call him. You heard some good things about him, like he's a good, just a good physical player.
Yeah, I mean, good physical player, good hands, good concentration. Just a chain mover, I think. Not necessarily the most explosive guy after the catch, but again, can make a catch to convert a third down, keep the chains moving. And so really, as long as they're not dropping passes and, causing you productivity on offense, it's and they're contributing, it benefits you as a team.
Yeah, and then also you got Jason Stanley, and Chigbu, which to me has been a little kind of, maybe they just haven't got in there. They're just kind of part of the rotation. Jason Stanley, I think when we went to the South Carolina game last year, I told you, it's like every time number 2's in the game, it's going to be a running play, which that's pretty dumb coming from offense. If you're any kind of defensive coordinator, you notice that. I don't know if he's just a body out there. And then maybe Tyler Simmons, he got some catches. And it looks like on the way you got Mark Webb and Trey Blunt. I think you're higher on Mark Webb, kind of like maybe that similar Chris Conley kind of body, block downfield, can make a chain mover kind of catch. Is that what you noticed from his film? Maybe he's probably got more of the upside than Trey Blunt, or you like Trey Blunt better. That's on the way. The two recruits.
I think out of the group, I think I like probably, and it's close. I like Holloman maybe the best, and then Mark Webb after that. To me, Mark Webb looks like he can get a little bit of separation.
Yeah.
Yards after the catch rather. Blunt just looks like he's a big physical body. Again, seems like he's got good hands, but again, I just, it's at this point, again, it's a crapshoot. You don't know what they're going to do until they get on campus. But, I just kind of liked Webb's film a little bit better. I think your point about Simmons, who's easily overlooked, is a valid one as well, because he did show some steady hands and made some catches for us late in the year. And so, that's somebody else who I think can come in and make some catches.
Yeah, I guess another guy looking down. I guess you got any more of a short field possession. I guess you're also forgetting about we are Matt Landers. Is he like kind of a 3-star when he kind of a big body too? Or he's 6'5".
Yeah. I mean, at this point, we're just naming or we're potentially just naming guys on the roster. I mean, I don't know much about Matt Landers. He could very well be an under the radar kind of guy. I know he's 6'5", bigger body, and so certainly no disrespect meant to Landers or his family, although it probably came off like that a little bit. I just don't know enough about him yet at this point to be able to offer an opinion as to whether or not I think he's going to contribute.
Yeah. Also, another person, I guess he never really played that much, been kind of banged up. I guess on the secondary and the defensive side, I guess Reggie Wilkerson's transferring as well. Any thoughts on that? I guess he's kind of one of those that was kind of like, kind of down deep on the chart.
Yeah, I'll say this about Reggie Wilkerson. I think he, I don't remember him ever being in trouble. Seems like he went to class, showed up at practice, did whatever he could do. Just don't think he ever really, had the talent to contribute to Georgia for whatever reason. Maybe the system wasn't right, whatever else it was. I kind of put him in that quote-unquote, what I'll call the Disney years era of Georgia recruiting, where we kind of got beat for a lot of players we should have, especially in state, that we should have gotten. And so we tried to make up for it with getting some of these guys that we, or at least was portrayed in the media as being under the radar for lack of a better term, and I guess just to have something positive to report in recruiting at the time. But yeah, I mean, it seemed like he was a fairly decent player coming out of high school. I think he probably ended up, from a contribution standpoint, contributed to that, which you probably expect from a player of his caliber coming out. He struggled with some injuries. He played a couple games, but overall, probably is just looking at being a reservist and a special teamer is was his legacy at Georgia. That said, wish him the best of luck. I don't think it really hurts us. Again, didn't really seem like he was playing a whole lot for us last year anyway, or certainly wasn't making much of an impact for us on the field.
Yeah, I think he was just kind of like he was down deep on the depth chart. So, good luck to him. Just maybe part of attrition, maybe wasn't a good fit. Another one I want to talk about could get interesting because of, it's always good to have there is, I think losing, even though he never really played, but just always having that backup in case something happened because I think losing, Bryce Ramsey because he is wanting to transfer. I know he never really was a good fit. He's always kind of like third string. But I guess to actually have him, if you really think about it, you got Eason, definitely going with him. He's going to be your second-year starter. But God forbid Eason goes down, ankle injury or blows out a knee or something. Then you got to bring in, Jake Fromm, true freshman. You're kind of starting all over. I feel like if you kind of had that Bryce Ramsey, who has been in some games, and he would have been a senior this year, a grad transfer, I think losing him just for depth, or maybe even have, he has been in some college experience, some games. And looks like this Parker Malloy kid, which I guess he's probably never would have played. So basically you're only down to three actual guys on the roster. I think they did say that Ramsey is staying around, kind of just helping out, running plays and throwing balls. But, you got Eason, you got Jake Fromm, true freshman, and then it looks like you got Sam Vaughn, and then you're going to have, I guess he's coming in June, you're going to have Stetson Bennett IV, which, I don't know, that sounds like a really cool preppy tennis player, lacrosse player coming in. Stetson Bennett, really cool name. But that's basically your team. You're going to have a guy run scout team. Just like, that's not too much depth. So I was going to get your thoughts on that. Losing Ramsey just doesn't help.
Yeah, to me, obviously what every team ideally wants is when you have an injury to a starting quarterback, you want the next quarterback up to come in and be, effective enough to win you the game, right? To me, in terms of losing Bryce Ramsey or not, it's almost like saying, the team is hurt by the loss of a guy like Joe Cherisinski III, and that really what you've got is a body on the roster.
Yeah.
Again, Bryce Ramsey, him and his family were very, were just great additions to the University of Georgia. They were all into the program, but just, he was a good kid when he was on campus, but he just didn't have it between the years. He had every opportunity, great arm, but, just couldn't put it together to be an effective starter. I mean, you had, even if you, for whatever reason, Lambert beat you out 2 years ago for the job, there's really no reason if you have what it takes to be a starting SEC quarterback outside of injuries or something like that or suspension that you shouldn't win that job over, a true freshman and Jacob Eason. And, Eason beat him out. And so it's just saying that losing a guy like Bryce Ramsey from a depth standpoint is a loss. Again, it's almost like saying, losing a backup walk-on long snapper is a loss just because you have one fewer person with the position. I mean, again, I get that, there's always that possibility that Jacob Eason gets hurt and then you're relying on a true freshman Fromm. And you certainly, would like to have somebody with more experience that knows the playbook better. But the reality of the situation is even if Ramsey's on the roster, Fromm probably still gets a nod over him anyway at some point. And even if he doesn't, with Ramsey in there, you're running a very vanilla offense in all probability. It's going to be a lot of handing off and basic dump passes because he tended to take risks with his ball placement. So again, I wish him the best of luck. Him and his family were huge parts of the University of Georgia. No disrespect is meant, but again, I don't really see him as that much of a loss. I think probably what you certainly would have wished for more is that maybe you had a more effective person in there between Eason and Fromm who could come in and make some contributions. But Bryce Ramsey is what he is. Barring kind of a complete 180 in what we've seen from him, I don't think that he would have made that much of a difference for us anyway if Eason had gone down.
Yeah, looking back on the whole like Bryce Ramsey thing. I mean, first off, I think you could really be a nitpicky here. You could have put this on Bobo and Rick recruiting him. 2013? You had I hate to say Deshaun Watson, who was the best quarterback going down this year and winning national titles. Maybe you should have went after him, being right in your backyard in the state of Georgia, but you ended up rolling with a wing T guy that didn't throw that many balls coming out of Camden County in 2013, which I think we all questioned that. It looked like he had a good arm, but he just didn't. I mean, he probably threw I think 5 to 10 times a game looking at his stats, but it's probably just a bad recruiting thing. And then he couldn't even beat out an average Grayson Lambert. We don't have to let Sean talk about how he felt about Lambert. It was basically just a body filling in, hand the ball off, game manager, and you couldn't beat him out in 2015 and. Georgia ends up going in a lackluster 10-3, so that was your year to beat him out. And then when you did play like that Alabama game, you're just throwing up fly balls to the secondary. I know it was wet that game, but just never could hit it. Yeah. So like I said, it would have been good. And then he did come in, positive. He did come in and punt. I think he punted last year, the year before. I think it was 40-something yards, so he filled in that way. And I know he did have that really good first down that he ran in the bowl game. So, he in spots he was in there, but, just never really put it all together. And, he was able to get an education from University of Georgia. So thanks for
your contribution.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, you can put him down. I hate to say really bust him. Put it down as one of the busts. Didn't really... I mean, and that's part of I think that's part of that terrible 2013 class, which is still, still haunting us to this day. We're trying to turn it around. But anyway, hey, God be with you and move on. Trent Thompson's been spotted, which I think is great.
Sit down or dance, I hope you dance.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, good. I hope you get your graduate transfer. Hey, but thanks for saying. I will give you this DGD, damn good dogs, they say, for hanging around, throwing balls, and hanging out in the spring. So I mean, good dude. Having Trent Thompson spotted around, I know he looked a little, they said, underweight, but they said he has been running. Seems to run around on the sidelines, getting his head together, so I think that's positive. I think he'll definitely be good to go in the spring.
He's been spotted around. What is he, Bigfoot?
No, I mean, he can't, he's limited. He can't go out and play, but you got him on the sidelines actually on campus running sprints, and I think they're trying to get him, gain some weight back. He's eating better. So, I mean, that's just a positive. He might never be the same again, but, maybe he got his head together. So, I think that's positive that he's out there with the team.
No, great.
So I mean, you got to have him back. And then, Roquan, I think, has been spotted working out. I know he had that pec that he tore. You got to get him back. I think he'll be good to go. So, I hope there's no really injury. Another great thing, they say Chubb, which is great. Chubb looks, he even said, I think, coming off that knee injury, any guy you talk to in the way, even the day, Gurley, Adrian Peterson, everybody said usually that full year right after the year you come back are usually, the best. So I think you're going to really see the Nick Chubb of old. He might never be, 100% as he was his freshman year, but I think you're going to see, 90, 95%. You can tell, last year, I think he even said it at first. Everybody got excited. The UNC game, 222 yards, that big touchdown, then slowly kind of digressed. It could have been offensive line was bad, but you even said it hey, he's getting a little quicker as the season prolonged. So I think that's exciting that he's got no brace on, no ankle wraps or anything. He's just full go,
Agreed.
So and I think they're questioning they're going to use Sonny Michel a whole lot more. This comes back to Sean's favorite, Jim Chaney. Can he turn the corner and not make this offense so vanilla? And I think you got to pull the training wheels off because you got Jacob Eason, sophomore, second year, and they have said he's shown a lot more being a leader in the huddle, and he's talking to guys when he throws the ball, so he looks like more of a leader. And then they keep saying more and more positive about Jake Fromm. Looks like he's a beast in the film room. Like actually corrects Eason sometimes. They said there's competition in there, which is great. So I just think having Jake Fromm there to push him a little bit. Like, hey, if you mess up, man, or if you have a couple of games where you throw some pick sixes or 3 or 4 of them, this is your you can lose this position. Which I just think it's good to have competition. Having Jake Fromm, good 4-star coming in. Yeah.
No, I agree. And the thing is I think just as important to that is to have somebody who can come in and be an effective second quarterback, whether that's, Fromm, which isn't necessarily likely as a starter, or just as a great backup. I mean, having somebody that's in place to be the heir apparent on quarterback is just, it gives you one less thing to worry about going forward.
Yeah, I agree. Any other thoughts on the spring so far? Any other things you wanted to bring up on any guys you've heard about? I also heard reading today that they really said that Charlie Warner could really be another tight end / wide receiver that stood out. I think he's looked really good. And they said last year he would have played more, but I think that high ankle sprain kind of aggravated him throughout the year.
Yeah, and he's one I think that gets overlooked.
Yeah.
To me, he was somebody who showed the ability to catch the ball. Maybe not necessarily the greatest separation in the world, but certainly looks like he can be a pretty good, tight end option for us. The one guy who seems to, I guess piggybacking on your comment about competition quarterback, it seems like the one player due to these incoming freshmen who really seems to be, kind of, taking the competition seriously from this freshman class is Isaiah Wynn. I mean, he really wants to be the starting left tackle next year. Truthfully, I thought that's where he always belonged. I thought we were a lot more effective as an offense when he was there. But it seems like that's, and again, a lot of this is just, they're being asked questions by interviewers. They're probably dead dog tired after practice.
Yeah.
And you got to say something to an interview question, but it seems like he really wants that position. And so, that's kind of, I think, another example of, he knows he's got these freshmen coming in and he wants a chance to start or to continue to play. He's got to step it up.
Yeah, I like that. You got him at left tackle. The only question with his is I think they got him at like 6'2", 305. I mean, do you think that's, left tackle is your most important. Do you think that's kind of small? And then, you do have DeMarcus Hayes, the transfer coming in. I think it's like 6'6", 330, 340, kind of like that prolific size. What's your thoughts on that? Because, this SEC can be going against some monsters. And not saying that's a small dude. It's still 6'2", is
well,
not
like it is. It's below average from a height standpoint for, a left tackle. I don't know. On the one hand, you like a longer reach just because it helps you engage the blocker. I guess the other thing to that, though, is how quick are their feet? Because, again, you could be 6'8", 390 pounds, but if you're not quick enough in the feet, hips, the knees, whatever it is, to get off that snap and block the rusher coming at you, what good are you?
Yeah, I agree.
So, yeah, I mean, it certainly could be Hayes. It could be Thomas.
Yeah, I was about to say that. You got, I think the most prolific guy coming in, everybody's really excited, is going to be Isaiah Wilson. Do you see him more at the right tackle getting a look, or do you see him left tackle? I mean, I feel like this guy might play from day one, how big he is.
I think he's probably a right tackle. I mean, I think, don't overlook Thomas either. I mean, he did.
Yeah, you're really high on him.
He's a left tackle. I liked his film, before he kind of had the breakthrough cramp at the Army All-American game.
Yeah.
he's got size, but he's also got, the quickness needed to be that, blindside protector that you're looking for, that left tackle. So, and I think, you've been high on Hayes, and a lot of people are as well. I mean, he's a 4-star coming out. So, I mean, there's depth there. And certainly either one of those guys could come in and has the potential to be the true left tackle. And, I think Wilson probably does come in.
How about Demery or Natore Johnson? You keep hearing great things. Are these more guards? I know these are big bodies. You like them at the guards, maybe?
Yeah, especially Johnson. I think that he's just kind of that typical, hog molly on the inside of the line. Kind of a bull in the run blocking game. I don't know where in line he falls on the depth chart. I think it kind of depends on how Ben Cleveland continues to progress. I mean, you may see Johnson play some this year. You may see him next year, but he's definitely, barring injuries and other things, he should be a factor for us down the road.
Yeah, that's the name that just was going to come. A lot of the boards, he's the most popular name beside Mecole Hardman. Is what's up with Ben Cleveland? I mean, is this his year? I guess he'll be a redshirt freshman. I guess it'd be, is it redshirt sophomore? He's redshirt last year. I mean, is this his year? Because he's a big dude, right? He got a year in the system. You're redshirted. He's like, what, 6'6"?
Well, he'd be a redshirt freshman because I guess it's his second campus.
Yeah.
It could be, yeah. I think that he struggled some, and again, this is just message board fodder, so you don't really know how much to take into it. You heard some just the general transition to the college game was difficult for him. Just the transition to college period was difficult for him. So there were stories about him, crying in his dorm room or whatever. Again, message board fodder. I have no idea if true or not. But, he was somebody who's high school filmed. I mean, he was just a mauler in the run game. And, he's got the big body. What's he, 6'6", 340, something like that?
Yeah, monster. They say weight room monster too.
Yeah, so he's got all the potential in the world to come in and just be a force there at the offensive guard spot. Yeah. I don't know if Isaiah Wilson coming on, he comes in and plays offensive tackle, but certainly I think he could be effective at guard and contribute right away. I mean, the one advantage he's got over guys like Johnson and the other freshman coming in is that he's been on campus for a year. He's been in the system for a year.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope all these linemen coming in haven't been sitting around eating bonbons. I hope they've been working out and on a pretty good diet. Because basically we'll just get them, June, July, maybe 2.5, 3 months to get on the weight program and throw them out there.
Exactly.
Yeah, another thing I wanted to mention that was interesting. All right, Georgia coming off an 8-5 year. Defense pretty good, but read where a while back they gave some raises to some of the coaching staff. I was going to get your thoughts on that. Could have been just bumps up because of recruiting, because they have that great recruiting year. I'll throw some of these numbers at you. So, running back coach Dale McGee earns $350,000. He gets a raise of $75,000. Also, strength and conditioning coordinator Scott Sinclair earns $300,000. He got bumped up to $80,000. And then, So I think you probably agree with those. Tracy Rocker, which we can transition a little bit, earned $520,000. But then they got Trey Scott recently from Ole Miss, which we talked about that a while back. How I would have jumped ship too, because they got they got a thunderstorm coming and they got problems. He's getting $400,000. And then some of the other salaries, you got Jim Chaney, $850,000. I know you love that guy. Mel Tucker, $850,000, well deserved. Sam Pittman, $650,000. You got James Coley, $450,000. Kevin Scher, outside linebacker coach, $375,000. Dale McGee, Glenn Schumann, $250,000, and Shane Beamer Ball, $300,000. So I was going to get your thoughts on those guys getting some bumps up, and do you think they were well deserved, even though the team went 8-5?
I mean, yeah, I don't really necessarily judge a coaching staff by its first year. Again, just because you never know. Look at Larry Coker when he took over. The job for the Miami Hurricanes. They won the national title year 2. they lost an overtime game to Ohio State, and then it was downhill from there. And I mean, Nick Saban's first year at Alabama, 6-6. So, your first year, you're really kind of dealing with the players, in the and the system and the structure and the problems or lack thereof that were in place before you got there. So, I don't necessarily know that you can really, it's fair to base it on what our record was last year. I think a lot of the salary increases were merited. I mean, Del McGee has shown to be a great recruiter so far for us. Getting DeAndre Swift was big. I mean, we had also a commitment from the kid out of Texas before we ended up having to pull the offer. It seems like late we've surged ahead for Zamir White, number 1 overall running back in the class of 2018.
Hey, he's been speaking to him, been wearing a lot of Georgia gear recently. Showed him boxing, got all Georgia gear on. Great sign, I think.
Yeah.
Which we need him for 2018 because that's a small class. Which
it is, and the thing is his work with Harry as a true freshman. I mean, that kid contributed. Mm-hmm. So, to me, he's kind of a rising star in the coaching game. It's well deserved. The other thing too is I think it's supply and demand. Whenever you have, even above average assistant coaches, right?
Yep.
There aren't that many great ones out there, and so the thing is if you don't pay them, somebody else is going to, and it's really there's a portion of it's obviously about the X's and O's, but it's about the Jimmys and Joes as well, and so you need to make certain that you're paying guys because again, both on the recruiting trail, whatever they're teaching these kids in the film room is important. And so, I thought all of the raises were merited.
Yeah, I do say I did notice last year, you probably did too, I noticed that Scott Sinclair's strength and conditioning, I noticed that the guys, I know Kirby liked rotating a lot, but I noticed that the guys had good gas tanks this year. They looked like they weren't getting dominated the way some of the Rick teams were in the past. I know they were 8-5, but I thought third and fourth quarter they still had good push and were motivated out there. So I thought Scott Sinclair has been a positive note in strength and conditioning,
No, I would agree with that.
Yeah, that was one thing last year. You just they don't look gas. I mean, if it was a long drive, of course, you might see the hands go on the hips, but I noticed, fourth quarter, man, they're still giving a good push. The only thing with the defense, though, I'm sure they're working on it now. Kirby's been focused on it. Got to do better in that red zone, next to last in the red zone. And that could have been, I think, Sean, you mentioned that it could have been a conservative play calling. That's just something you got to do better on because, red zone seemed like every time they got in there, they'd score. So they need to work on that for sure in the offseason. Let's see. Yeah, go ahead. Transitioning now. I know we mentioned it. Do you think that looks like now Tracy Rocker was actually fired, and it could have been? I know Kirby said something, PC all of a sudden that we're going to keep that in house internally. But so we'll get your thoughts on that. Do you think? I think you said could have been he muffed on some of these 2015, 2016 defensive linemen he whiffed on. I was going to get your thoughts on that Tracy.
Well,
Tracy
I don't necessarily know that you blame them for, or it had anything to do with losing Brown last year to Auburn. And to Rutgers' credit, he brought in some, an outstanding defensive line, to the University of Georgia. I mean, if you're gonna blame him for, losing Brown, you got to give him credit for Trent Thompson and, Julian Rochester and Tyler Clark and Hawkins and all these other guys in here. From what the rumor has been, it comes down to the fact that, Aubrey Solomon was headed to Georgia until there was a confrontation between Solomon's mother and Tracy Rucker. And so, again, I obviously don't know Tracy Rucker personally. He seems like somebody who is very strong in his opinions and his stance and how he approaches people. And so I can see where no nonsense is, maybe another way to describe that. And I can see where if you get in a situation with another no-nonsense person, which may be Aubrey Solomon's mother, that it can be confrontational, or that you can have the possibility of a confrontation if you're not careful. If what they were saying about Rutgers firing is correct, it was obviously a major, assuming that he wasn't asking, which I don't think is the case, for improper benefits. But assuming Rucker got into a confrontation with Aubrey Solomon's mother, it was a critical lapse in judgment, again, because it's not just simply about the Aubrey Solomons, it's about the underclassmen at those universities, and what impression and information they're going to get disseminated to them about their experience with the University of Georgia, because there's always recruits from these high schools that Georgia's going to be looking at after the Aubrey Solomons have signed, and so you've got to correct that situation, and you want to make certain that whatever relationship the University of Georgia has, that they stay on good terms with the high schools and the coaches and the recruits.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think coming from Kirby, he was also attrition, coming over from the Rick staff, and you remember it was definitely, I think, right when Kirby came over in 2016, it came down to the last minute if they were going to keep him or not. So I think missing out maybe on that, Derek Brown in 2016, and then you didn't get Aubrey Solomon in 2017 didn't help. I don't think he's actually went on with another team, but I think Georgia did have to pay him out his $525,000, so he might just stay at home this year and rest up, and you're still getting paid and look around for something else. Might go back to the NFL, but hope the best for him. Hopefully Trey Scott, coming in from Ole Miss, can be added, which I heard good things so far. He's doing real well, and hopefully he can do real well on the recruiting trail. Going to transition in the. This is from the USA Today. Way too early top 25. I was going to get some of your thoughts on this. This is just good off-season talk. Throw out the top 25 and see what you thought about this. Anyway, off the top of your head, some of these are probably common sense. Who do you think is your top 5, or the way too early top 20? 25.
I'd have to throw Alabama in there, maybe Florida State. Who else? Maybe Ohio State.
Who do you think's number 1, though? Kind of got it right so far. I was kind of surprised when this would be a number 1.
Let me think about that. For Washington?
No, it's actually Florida State's number 1.
Wow.
They got that. I guess that Francois kid, but I don't know if he was even though all these don't mean anything anyway, but it's just still get interesting to talk about. Number 2 is Bama. Trying to find all these at the website up. Let's see. Number 3 is Ohio State, which you probably agree with that. Do they have Barrett? Is that Barrett kid coming back again? It seems like he's been there 5 years. Is he back? JT Barrett? He kind of struggled late last year.
He was gone, but
yeah. Well, they always reload there. Number 4 is Harbaugh with Michigan. That's interesting. And number 5 is Washington again.
Yeah.
So that's going to be, yeah.
Washington probably ought to be higher. And Michigan, as I understand it, lost a good bit from last year. So to me, I understand how it reloads every year. I can't remember what they've got at the quarterback position at this point. So to me, putting them in the top 5 at this point, but I guess maybe you do it just to the extent of Florida State number 1 seems a bit of a stretch to me, just because you've got.
You're losing Delvin Cook, which is a blow too. He's one of the top backs last year.
Yeah. what do you really do?
Yeah.
And you just don't know if, that freshman from Mississippi who's coming in supposed to be all world or whatever, but you don't really know what they're going to do until they actually get on campus. And, really more on campus until they actually get on the field to see what I mean, it's just kind of, as I understand it, I think Washington, other than maybe a receiver, is bringing a lot of people back.
Yeah.
Chris Peterson just has a resume that he does. I wouldn't be surprised to see those boys back. To me, USC, I think, merited, and maybe they're, I don't know about top 5, but I think they're a team that you potentially watch. They could blow up altogether, but they return a lot of talent as well. And I wouldn't be surprised to see them, do some things next year either.
Who was that? I'm sorry.
USC.
Oh yeah. They got a quarterback, man. He was lights out in the bowl game, and he's great.
Yeah.
Oklahoma's number 6. Number 7 is USC. They've got the Sam Darnold. He's the one that aired it out. He's the one that's what Jacob Eason should look like, even though maybe they got a better offensive line weapons. But USC is number 7. Number 8 is Penn State. James Franklin's got him rolling. So that was definitely a great, impressive performance against USC in the Rose Bowl in the shootout. Number 9 is Clemson. They are losing a lot. Got Sean Watson. They lost the wide receiver. So they'll be kind of starting over. They're probably just put in there because they were the national title holder. And number 10 is Oklahoma State. That's a little interesting. Where do you think Georgia is top 25? I kind of like where they're at on this prediction. I think it's good and respectful. But where do you think they're sitting at? Any guess?
Probably for 23.
I like that it's randomly 23.
It's the latter half of the top 5.
Yeah. Actually, they have them at 17, which decent. Not top 15, but kind of in the middle. I don't mind that. It's not like, they're expecting us to win the East. It's going to be a lot of hype around that. They have Tennessee's 18, 19 is Louisville, and 20 is South Florida, right behind us.
Interesting.
They said the biggest games on their prediction is at Notre Dame, at Tennessee, and of course Jacksonville is the 3 big games. I think I agree with that mostly. I think that then at Auburn is going to be really tough. That might be one of those L's that we drop, but that more and more you look at that at Notre Dame game is going to be intriguing, especially if they struggle the week before against App State. Now if they come out guns blazing, beat them 42-10 against a decent App State, I'll get excited. But his first 2 games is going to be a little tricky. Georgia infamous for starting out slow. So.
And it's really about the other factor with that is that it seems like Notre Dame is kind of a kindred spirit of ours, and that it seems like they struggle with consistency. And part of it might just be that Notre Dame's got a national fan base, some of which is kind of nostalgic for Newt Rockne in the 1930s. But
touchdown Jesus.
Well, right, they're another team that seems to come in with a lot of preseason hype, and for the most part of the last 20 plus years has, largely underachieved. So you just don't know. I mean, I did have the pleasure of going up and watching Catholics versus Convicts, Part 3, Miami Notre Dame last year. I will say.
Hey, you say great atmosphere there, right? Great place to watch a game.
James player. Yeah, great atmosphere. The interesting aspect too is that wooden benches, so definitely tell it's an old stadium, and the bleachers and the crowd are actually really close to the field, kind of like LSU. There's not much separation. You kind of have a huge separation I shouldn't say huge separation, but there's a decent enough separation between where the first row of seats fans are and where the player benches are. Never mind the fact that you also got blocked by the hedges. Notre Dame, man, you're right on top of each other. You're definitely kind of right on top of everybody. As far as their play goes, they reminded me a little bit of the New England Patriots from the standpoint that while they had athletes, I think that their biggest attribute for their players was the fact that I think they played very intelligently. Whereas I think at times Georgia, we tend to try to overcompensate, or shouldn't just necessarily say Georgia, but I think oftentimes there's a trend among athletes to try to overcompensate for, stupid decisions in a game with athleticism. Notre Dame doesn't really seem to beat itself with a lot of penalties or things like that. They do have an issue with running the ball, though. It seems like they're very pass-heavy, don't really run when it would be to their benefit to do so. And I think that's a common criticism that a lot of Notre Dame football fans have of Brian Kelly and that football team. So, again, I think as long as Georgia can kind of sustain some pass rush, we've got a good chance in that game.
Yeah, we should be the favorite coming in, but still a great, and especially it's been, 30, 36, 37 years since we actually played them. So, and last time we played them was for Georgia's national title with Herschel Walker, so that'll be interesting. Maybe Sean and I can actually plan on going to that game, get the hookup from cousin Mark, maybe.
Yeah, we need to go.
Yeah, so that'll be good. We'll work on that. My only thing is I'm praying for a 9 App State 12 o'clock snoozer game noon. I'm hoping it's just a later game so they'll get motivated, and then the Notre Dame game will be night on NBC, which will be interesting.
No, great.
All right, my man. I believe that's all we got for today. Good. Reaching out, talking a little bit about the spring. Hopefully, we'll have some good stuff to talk about coming up. Got the spring game coming up on April 22nd. But anything else you got?
I think that's it.
All right, my man. Well, I appreciate it, and another good chat today.
Yep, I agree.
All right, my man. Well, hope you have a good night, and good night, America.
Good night, America.